This time I'm more organized than ever before, and I will set up our readathon, our read-along. So yeah, that's my stack. I'm super excited. I love classics. Classics are the best. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess. These are the classics that I want to get to in 2024. So this is my classics TBR for the year. You won't even recognize Jess. She's so organized. I'm gonna eat my words, I'm sure. Girl is organized, sort of. So the only thing that I didn't do with this list is I not go through and take out all of the books that were banned when they were published. There are quite a few in my classics list that were banned when they were published. I made a video about banned books and I challenged people to read banned books. I'm not the only person doing this. I've noticed it's a trend across BookTube. I think it's fantastic. I am not participating in the 24 banned books challenge, but I will leave all of the information linked in the description box below if you're curious about that challenge. That being said, a lot of the books that I've chosen have been at one point or another banned. I think 7 of the 12 to 15 books that I'm going to talk about today have been banned or challenged, maybe 8, a good chunk of them anyway. So I didn't set aside books that have been banned, but as I go through my list, I will verify their banned status and I will include that in my description of the books. Let's begin. The first book that I'm reading, I know for sure has been banned over and over and over, and I talked about it already a couple of times on my channel. I'm reading this in January. It's The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I haven't started it yet. So our protagonist in the story, Precola Breedlove, is a young Black girl who prays every day to be beautiful. She yearns for praise for blonde hair and blue eyes. She's teased for the color of her skin, the color of her eyes, and her appearance. So the book is clearly dealing with racism, but it's also addressing our collective obsession with an idealized white beauty standard. So this book has been successfully banned from all kinds of different high school programs, different curriculums. It's been challenged over and over and over again because of its depiction of child sex abuse and was considered to be sexually explicit. So it's also supposed to have homosexual overtones. It's not supposed to be suitable for young people. Yeah, so it's been banned and challenged for a variety of different reasons. The next on the list is the two slave narratives that my daughter spoke about when we filmed our best books of 2023. And she was really strongly encouraging people to read Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl by Harriet Jacobs, along with, and she suggested reading these together, along with the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. And I am going to do exactly as she suggests. She said that it was really interesting to read them together because one is from a man's perspective and one is from a woman's perspective. I just think that it would be very interesting to read these both together. So I know that Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl has, over the years, it has been challenged because it tells the brutal reality of the life of a young slave girl, and so for that reason it's definitely been challenged. She had written the book incidentally under a pseudonym. The name she had used was Linda Brent. It's mostly been banned because there are very open discussions of sexual harassment and abuse in the book. In terms of Frederick Douglass's narrative, it hasn't been as often challenged as other slave narratives, in fact, although it has faced some controversies and has been restricted. This book was extremely influential to the abolitionist movement. It remains a really important piece of American literature. But like so many works that address slavery and racism and social justice, this narrative has been subject to challenges and censorship. Shocker! So that brings me to Invisible Man. Now, my copy of Invisible Man is currently wrapped behind me because I wrapped it for my Wrapped TBR. In the course of making that video and having comments on that video, I think it was Ariane, correct me if I'm wrong, who had suggested that this would be a good read-along on the channel. And I've been thinking about this more and more, and I am going to offer it as read along to anyone who would like to join me in reading this. I'm planning to do the read along. Well, February is Black History Month, so I feel like it would be good for us to at least start this in February. I'm not committed to reading it just in 1 month, but February would be the logical month to tie it into Black History Month. The other possibility would be to read it in March or read it over March and February. It is quite a long book. This particular copy is 573 pages. So do let me know in the comments below. I'm going to leave my Voxer linked below. If you're interested in participating, let me know either publicly in the comments below, or you can send me a message on Voxer and I will organize that to read with everyone. I think that would be really fun. Invisible Man is supposed to be an incredible study of a man's life as he goes from the Deep South to the streets and basements of Harlem. It was first published in 1952. And it has been really lauded as a masterpiece since then, since it was first published. I'm just really excited to read this. It really is supposed to be a story about the Black American experience during that time period. I can't wait to read it, especially if we're going to do it together. I just think it will be so fun. Was it banned or challenged? Absolutely. Even when it was first published, it was immediately subject to challenges and has had occasional bans in educational settings, as you can well imagine, because of its depictions of racism, violence, and sexuality. So yes, let me know in the comments below or ping me on Voxer. I will set up the read along for this one. So yes, and also let me know if you prefer February or March, or we could do it over the 2 months. Totally flexible. I'm totally flexible. I'm very excited at the prospect of reading that with you all. The next one on my list is Quicksand by Nella Larson. A couple of years ago, I read Passing when everybody was reading Passing, and I picked this up and was curious to read it. So our main character in Quicksand is a woman named Helga Crane. She's a teacher. She was born to a Black father and white mother, and it's about her experiences living. It starts out where she's teaching at an all-Black school in the South, and then she moves to Harlem, and then she eventually moves to Denmark. So I think it will be good. Then we have The Well of Loneliness by Radclyffe Hall. This was recommended to me by my daughter. We just went to the bookstore and we were picking up books for her semester, which has already begun, and she immediately said, "Hey, have you read this book?" And I said, "No, I in fact have not. I think I would like to add that to my classics list." So yeah, she's the puppet master. This sounds amazing. This was definitely banned when it was first published in 1928. It became, however, an international bestseller. It's about the story of the protagonist, Stephen. I'm surprised that I never heard of it. Just goes to show that I live under a rock. But for decades, this was the single most famous lesbian novel. It has influenced how love between women is understood for the 20th century and beyond. So I might read this for May of the Moderns, potentially, but I have a couple of other classics that would fit in. So it was banned because of its explicit treatment of homosexual relationships. It's about a lesbian. That's why it was banned. I'm reading all the banned books for my classics. Another book that was challenged in its time is Maurice by E.M. Forster. I have been told that Maurice is the best of E.M. Forster's works. I have not read all of E.M. Forster. I read A Room with a View a couple of years ago and thought it was wonderful, hilarious, truly enjoyed it. Great summer read. Just really, really liked that novel. I am very excited to read Maurice. So this book follows our protagonist, Maurice Hall, and the challenges that he faces personally as he navigates his own sexuality in a very repressed society. It was finished in 1914, and But with that, it was not published during E.M. Forster's lifetime because of the explicit treatment of homosexual themes. Maurice was actually eventually only published in 1971 after E.M. Forster's death. Can't wait to read it. Next up is Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5. This book was also banned. It was published in 1969, and it's a satirical work that is anti-war. It specifically addresses the bombing of Dresden during World War II, or has as its topic the bombing of Dresden during World War II. I've heard it incorporates elements of science fiction and time travel, and it's satirical. So it's been banned and challenged for profanity, sexual content, and really anti-war themes. Anti-war themes. What? Why would you ban a book for anti-war themes? I ask you. So on the one hand, it's faced a lot of bans and a lot of challenges, but it's also widely celebrated as an important American classic. The other classics that I really want to get to this year are, well, Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, because I hear Wilkie Collins is just great. I hear Thomas Hardy was a bit enthralled by Wilkie Collins, and that leads me to be extremely curious about Wilkie Collins. I've chosen Moonstone because it's a detective novel, and I think it will be a really fun one, and I think it's going to be good in the summer, although I might get to it before then. It's supposed to be one of the earliest examples of the detective novel. It's supposed to have an intricate plot, and it just sounds really good. It hasn't really been challenged, though. It hasn't had any real widespread censorship. I still want to read it, though. Another book that I really want to read that I think has been more praised than it has been banned, and this follows up on what was one of my favorite classics that I read a couple of years ago, and that is Germinal by Emile Zola. I read Thérèse Raquin a couple of years ago, and I thought it was so great. It was such a good book. I've been meaning to get to more of Zola. This is a really significant work of French literature. It explores economic and societal issues during the Industrial Revolution. It focuses on the lives of coal miners and uprising in a coal mine. It depicts the grim struggle between capital and labor in a coal field in northern France. I'm really can't wait to crack this one open. Despair by Nabokov. This was a book that I had chosen for Mystery May last year. I was going to wrap it for my wrapped TBR, and then I decided, no, I'm just going to read it because it sounds so good. And I've never read anything by Nabokov, and I think this would be a good place to start. It's about a man who engineers his own murder. And again, I think it has mystery elements to it. It has a complex narrative, and I think the themes will be also fairly intriguing. Anyway, so really looking forward to this one. The Invention of Morel by Borges. This is a short little novella that was directly quoted by Mariana Enriquez in the opening of Our Share of Night. Ever since I read that, I've wanted to read this, so it's on my classics TBR. I think it's a bit of a mind bender. So this is a classic work of Argentine literature. It was first published in 1940. It's known for exploring themes of reality and consciousness and love and obsession. It's about this unnamed fugitive who finds himself on a mysterious island in the South Pacific. There are people that live on this island. They actually live in a mansion, and he realizes that they're not aware that he's there. And then he realizes that the people that are there are not actually real people, but they are recordings and projections of images. Yeah. And I think he falls in love with one of the images, Faustine. So it's going to be interesting. And the last book on my classics TBR list that isn't for a project, which I'll talk about in just a minute, is The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This was a pick for Eric Hall Anderson's book club last year, and I didn't get to it. It's actually his favorite book, he says, and I didn't get to it, and I've been meaning to get to it, so I've just added it to my TBR. It's meant to be a fairly challenging read. The only other books that I've read by Virginia Woolf are Orlando, which I adored, and Flush, which is also completely adorable. This is about a group of friends, and the waves follows their development from when they were kids up until they are adults. It says, while social events, individual achievements, and disappointments form its narrative, the novel is most remarkable for the rich poetic language that expresses the inner life of its characters, their aspirations, their triumphs, and regrets, their awareness of unity and isolation, and their questioning of the meaning of life itself. It sounds like something written for moi, written for me. So I actually can't wait to get to it. And then just a couple of additional mentions for the end of this video. I've decided that for Jane Austen July, I'm going to be reading Emma. I read Persuasion last year and was convinced that Jane Austen might not be absolutely awful. Because I don't know, I read Sense and Sensibility and I really didn't like it. Awful is a strong word. But I had read Sense and Sensibility and I did not get along with Sense and Sensibility. And then I read Persuasion and I did very much enjoy Persuasion. So I'm hoping that Emma is going to be a good option for me for Jane Austen July. I am going to reread 1984 by George Orwell because I had mentioned in the books that I missed in 2023 that I wish I had read Julia, which is a feminist retelling of George Orwell's 1984. A lot of people have been talking about it on BookTube. I would like to read 1984 and Julia together in a vlog. So I'm adding this one to my list for that reason. And then for the second installment of the college reading vlog, I know that there will be some classics on that. I don't know how many, but I know for sure that one of them is going to be The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway, because a friend of mine teaches this, and ever since she talked about teaching it, I've been wanting to include it. I think that she teaches it as a representation of masculinity, but I'd have to have a second conversation with her about the themes that she explores with the students. I'm pretty sure that that's it. So I'm going to read that for the college reading vlog. Take Invisible Man out, and that's one of our projects. These are the project classics, and then these are the 12 classics, including East of Eden by John Steinbeck. Because like so many people on BookTube, I haven't read anything except for Of Mice and Men. And Of Mice and Men, I loved. It was so sad. I loved it so much. It gutted me. I loved it. And I would really like to read East of Eden, which is supposed to be, I mean, I'm not sure if it's The Grapes of Wrath or East of Eden, but everyone says East of Eden is his big masterpiece. It really deals with complex ideas about morality, about good and evil. It just is supposed to be very rich in its storytelling, very deep in terms of its exploration of the human characters. He writes characters so well. I know that from Of Mice and Men. And I mean, all of the characters in Of Mice and Men were written so well, even the peripheral characters. So I have to read more Steinbeck. So I have added East of Eden to my pile. 12 in the regular pile, and then 4 for projects and read-alongs. That's a lot of classics. That's, well, what's 12 and 4? Yeah, math. 16 classics. And maybe a few more for the college reading vlog. Here we go. I don't know if I can hold them all up without them falling. Ah! Classics are the best. Anyway, you can follow along with me. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so and stick around. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you all. If you made it to the end of this video, you gotta leave me a wintry emoji. Okay, because it's winter out there. We just had a snowstorm and I'm going to strap on those skis. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. And you want to leave me a classic, an emoji that evokes classics to you. That could be, oh, I don't know, Scales of Justice. I don't know. Leave me, if you made it to the end of this video, leave me a thumbs up. Some of you may ask, why is she not reading it in French? I don't know, because I'm scared. I'm reading it in English. That's good. I think it explores virtual realities, and I would like to know which ones they are. No, as I go through, I'll just talk about them from that perspective. Oh God, there's going to be so much editing that has to go original one here.